What's my favorite drug, ladies and gentlemen? A lot of you out there might be tempted to think that it's cannabis, but no, it is not cannabis. My favorite drug is psilocybin mushrooms. Yes, indeed. I've got a mushroom like top on at the moment. It has mushrooms on it. I love this black shirt with pictures of mushrooms on it. My mum gave it to me for Christmas. But yeah, I think just the most mind expanding, creativity enhancing, wonderful drug that has ever existed on this planet, and it exists naturally as well. So interesting and so crucial about the substance that occurs just in the natural world. And yeah, psilocybin mushrooms have given me bliss beyond anything that I could imagine. They give me insight as well beyond anything I could imagine. Um, yeah, cannabis is a close second, I've said, since I use cannabis more frequently. I don't really ever get all that many opportunities to get my hands on psilocybin, so it's that's a bit of a bummer. If I could take it regularly, I would. If I could take it all the time, I would take it all the time. But yeah, it's a joyous experience. I couldn't recommend it highly enough to anybody. I think anybody who suffers from anything like anxiety, PTSD, depression, any kind of serious mental health problem could be benefited inordinately by taking psilocybin. I think it's almost like a therapy session condensed into a drug, or 16 therapy sessions condensed into a drug. And yeah, I think you gain so much perspective on things. You gain like such an ability to see into topics with subtlety and nuance, and to avoid hard and fast conclusions about anything, to be very broad minded, very open minded, very considerate as well. I think it makes us more tolerant, more open, more passionate about decent things. Um, for instance, the last time I took psilocybin, I got insight into everything from science fiction I was working on to engineering, design, um, physics, cosmology, all these sorts of things. I've gained huge insights, I think, due to my use of psychoactive compounds. And yeah, for these reasons, I'd heartily recommend that anybody take them. I was it research that came out recently that pegged psilocybin as the absolute safest drug that you can take. That has no known lethal limit of taking it. I mean, if you, in terms of like, not lethal, but in terms of having a very strong trip on psilocybin, I suppose you could take loads of it and trip your nuts off. But yeah, it's by no means lethal. It's an incredibly safe drug to take. It's safe both in terms of the psychological benefits of it. Well, in terms of its effect on the psyche, it's very safe. I've never really experienced any kind of come down or protracted um, series of symptoms after having taken it. You just feel very clean, very breezy, very much as though you've been in a sort of a positive dream state almost, whereby you've dealt with a huge amount of negative emotion and have then moved on from that. And that's an incredibly beneficial um, state to be in, I think, from having taken a substance. But yeah, it's something I would like to microdose actually, since I've heard an enormous amount about the benefits of microdosing it for controlling mental health problems. And yeah, that all seems to be very positive stuff. But yeah, it's not something I can regularly get a hold of, which is unfortunate, I think, since I would like to take it, I think, once every few months at least. Have a very strong psilocybin trip. That would be ideal, I think. And yeah, have this kind of great cognitive reset that it gives you. And it's been demonstrated in studies to increase people's creative faculties, their creative capacity, and the reason why it's thought to do this is that it's thought to give rise to neurogenesis. So it gives rise to this process and neuroplasticity as well. It's thought to enhance neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, which are these processes whereby new neurons are grown, as in neurogenesis, and neuroplasticity, more connections between neurons can be formed, or neurons can more readily form different connections within the brain, and this has been shown to have been positively impacted by the taking of psilocybin mushrooms. So yeah, a naturally occurring compound, something that we really ought to have a right to, I think, in everyday life. Something that comes from the earth, something which should be the collective inheritance of all people, not banned by any system of legislation or control, and whereby we're just allowed to grow it as enthusiasts if we want to. And I think obviously the same should be said of the cannabis plant. I don't think there should be any restrictions on how much we can grow. I think we should be allowed to keep as many cannabis plants as we want, just as enthusiasts, just as botanists, really, or ethnobotanists, whereby we investigate the relationship between plants and human cultures, and think very much about taking certain plant compounds for ritual purposes, if we're that way inclined, or just recreationally or medicinally, or however we choose to delineate between the two, if we can, right? If those don't all go together in some kind of holism of the modes by which our species expresses itself in its cultural practices and in terms of the things that we determine to be important, either for spiritual reasons or for more corporeal reasons, such as to keep our bodies healthy and our minds healthy, and perhaps to keep the spirit healthy as well, if we separate that at all from keeping the consciousness healthy, the mind healthy. And I've come across few compounds that make the mind as clear and clean and healthy and good generally as psilocybin mushrooms. And I've taken excursions to Amsterdam before to take truffles, which is it's as good. It's not quite the same thing, I don't think. Ideally what I'd like to do is just to grow some mushrooms for myself, and if I were to have a place of my own, who the hell would know that I'm cultivating mushrooms? Right? I mean, it'd be pretty hard to detect. I could probably get away with it, I just said. But there we go. But like with cannabis, I think it should be a human right. I think it should fall under our religious freedom, since we're given the right to every green plant in Genesis. That obviously should include the cannabis plant, since it's mostly green. And it should, I think, also include psilocybin mushrooms, because while they're not plants, obviously they're fungi, not plants. But while they're not plants, we should just have a right to them anyway, because they're products of nature. They should be the collective inheritance of all people, and really they're the collective inheritance of all people and animals as well, and animals should be able to use them also if they come across them and have a particular use for them. I don't know if they would or not, but that's roughly what I want to say. Those are my two favourite drugs, really: cannabis and psilocybin mushrooms. Cannabis also more for like day-to-day regulation of mental health, mental illness, and getting out of patterns which I fall very much into, but I'm very susceptible to, patterns of obsessive thinking, with OCD in particular, and I've suffered PTSD in the past, and it helps keep a lid on all those anxieties, those frustrations, those points of feeling unable to cope with things that are common with OCD, and I find it far harder to keep on a sort of even keel if I have those things in my life. So I value them very highly as medicines for the mind, and also you can just have fun with them as well. You can just use them for kicks, to have fun, and that's fine as well. And is cannabis going to harm you all that much? It's going to harm you a lot less than alcohol. I think that much is true enough about it. And psilocybin will harm you even less than that. So, two very safe drugs, two very important, useful compounds, and have given me great deal of fun in the past, good times, and insight and ideas and yeah, things to pursue, things to get obsessed with, healthy obsessions, I think, is what it's given me. You know, even from everything from my fiction writing to engineering work that I do and physics research that I do and all these sorts of things. Yeah, it's given me a huge amount of great things to think about and great things to keep the mind mulling over and pondering. And, you know, it gives you profound insight, I think, into reality, nature, the universe, and everything else, which I think a lot of people would draw from that experience. And that would be common to a lot of people's experience with psilocybin. Yeah, psilocybin is one I could not heartily recommend enough, and everyone should take it, I think. At least once in your life, I think. And why not? It's very, very safe to use.